Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody is having a good weekend so far. Staying healthy, staying strong. Welcome Karen. Hi Charmin. Ziadullah, good to see many students in the class already. Today, everyone, we are looking at IELTS Speaking Part 3, the final part of your speaking interview. And it is a Band 9 continued. Band 9 continued because Part 3 is, in fact, a continuation of your Part 2 cue card response. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Hello again, Jainil. Welcome, members. All right, this class is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Check us out there for the general IELTS. Visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of materials to help you improve your English and your communication. You can even practice your speaking for free with other IELTS students in video chat. I'll show you where. This is our academic IELTS web portal here with the blue background. Click that big red button to join the premium package. It is a one-time payment for lifetime access. We are an official IELTS test registration center and certified British Council agents. When you have a My Student account, you can log in at the top here. And after you are logged in, you will find this student partner speaking. And of course, speaking interview practice, that's with a native speaker. That's a paid service. This one's a free service with other IELTS students, student partner speaking. When you click on that, you will go to a new window, and in that new window you will see some students who are waiting for someone to practice. Here's David, here's Bakrat. You can video chat and audio chat with them. So check that out. Okay, and make sure to use that. Again, it's free. For the general IELTS, it's the same idea, green background. Click that big red button to join the premium package there. Okay, welcome Victoria. Hi Rupinder. Hi Eugene. Nice to see so many students in the class. Okay, everyone. So if you have any questions, send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. We have been holding classes according to our new schedule this week, which is at this time in the morning. Keep in mind, everybody, that tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, there are no classes as usual. Our classes are Wednesday to Saturday. So after this class, the next class will be on Wednesday at this time on the 12th. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, everyone. So let's get to speaking. Now, this is speaking part 3. And yesterday we did speaking part 2, the cue card. Okay. This is a speaking class, everyone. So make sure to speak and repeat. Speak and repeat. Copy my intonation, my pronunciation, my fluency as much as possible. Okay. All right. Harshdeep, you are making me blush. Okay, so this was the cue card yesterday. It was part 2, talk about a memorable landmark you have visited. You should say what the place is, who you were there with, what happens in this place, and why this landmark is so memorable for you. Okay, so we did that yesterday. Anybody remember what we talked about yesterday for this famous landmark? What was that? Anybody recall what this famous landmark was? What was that? Because in part 3, you have to make connections and relate to your part 2 response, okay? Jainiel and Bahrat say it was the Colosseum. Hi, Carolina. There's our moderator. Good to see you. Okay. Yeah, it was the Colosseum. And you know what? Let's practice our part two response just to warm up our speaking muscles, and then we can go to part three after. So this was our response yesterday to part two. And here we go. Okay, so again, speak and repeat. Copy with me from the top. Try not to read. Try to just copy me if you can. Okay, so here we go. 3, 2, 1. A very memorable landmark that I have visited back in 2005 is the Great Colosseum in Rome, Italy. This World Heritage Site is located in the heart of Central Europe, which was at one point the epicenter of the Roman Empire. The Colosseum is built on roughly 10 acres of land. It is an oval-shaped theater or stadium made of stones and is a reflection of the advanced Roman engineering back in 72 AD. The stadium is about 30 meters in height and houses roughly 2,500 spectators sitting around a main stage or arena where entertaining events were held for centuries. The Romans had originally built the Colosseum for gladiator battles and chariot races in order to entertain the citizens of the empire. The gladiators would emerge from underground tunnels and battle each other or animals, often to the death. Later in history, the Colosseum was used for music and theater, and nowadays it's for tourists. I had visited there in 2005 with my friend Corey when we were on a European tour after graduating university. It was an incredible experience to see the place, which I had not only read about in school, but have also seen depicted in so many Hollywood movies. The Colosseum has been restored somewhat to reflect its former glory, and certainly during our visit, there had been a moment where I felt the roar of the Roman citizens as they cheered for their favorite gladiators. I took many pictures when I was there, and it is an amazing memory that I will treasure for the rest of my life. Okay, Adrian, your 2 minutes is up. I'm going to stop you there. Please put the note paper to the side and your pen, and now we will continue with part three. For part three, I will ask you a question or two related to the topic of your part two response and to your answer. And then the examiner might say something like, do you remember the cost of the ticket to enter this landmark? Okay. So right away, let's get right into it. Elydia, I have to speak at a natural speed. I want you to build your fluency. I will speak slower in some parts. However, if you miss some of this, don't worry. You can go back and check this lesson again later and improve on that fluency, okay? All right, so here's a question the examiner might ask you. They will ask you at least one or two questions for part three that's connected to your response, okay? So do you remember the cost of the ticket to answer this landmark? What would be your answer? Give me an example answer, students. It doesn't have to be accurate, okay? Just come up with something. So I might say something like, well, I don't recall the exact amount, but if I had to guess, I would say it was around 20 euros. Okay. All right, Sadesh says, I don't know the cost of the tickets exactly, as I was provided with a couple by my travel agent as part of the European package. Very nice, Sadesh. That's the exact kind of sentence that will get you those high band scores. Okay. All right. Kuldeep, it would not be Roman currency in Italy today. It would absolutely be euros. Okay. Ferdovs says, absolutely. It cost me an arm and a leg. About $50 US. However, it was worth every penny. Okay, It was worth every penny. For Dobbs, I like your use of it cost me an arm and a leg in this case. That's great. We can throw another idiom in there. It cost me, it was worth every penny. Okay. So this was for Dobbs' answer. Absolutely. I was shocked that I had to pay an arm and a leg. It was $50 US, but in the end, it was worth every penny. Okay, so some nice use of idioms and expressions here. Very good. I don't recall the exact. Oh, that was mine. This was for Dobbs. Okay. Pay an arm and a leg means that it was really expensive, obviously. Okay. And then $50 US. It was worth every penny. All right. Okay. Very good. And then the examiner might ask you one more question. Something like, do you think the Colosseum will ever be used for entertainment again, aside from tourism, I mean? Okay, so they might ask you a couple. Don't be surprised. Sometimes you get one question, sometimes you'll get two questions directly related to your response. So answer this question for me. Do you think the Colosseum will ever be used for entertainment again, aside from tourism, I mean? Okay, so here the examiner's kind of chatting with you, or I shouldn't say chatting. It's more professional than that. I should say conversing. So the examiner will be conversing with you very naturally, okay? IELTS is not an ESL test. It is an English proficiency exam. So the examiner will use very natural language. Good to see you in the class, An. Yeah, nice to have you back. All right. Barhat says, well, I have vivid memories of the landmark, but I don't recall the cost of the ticket so much. I remember it was extremely expensive, around $100 for one person. Okay, Bakrat, I made a couple of corrections there. Victoria says, definitely, it can generate some revenue for the government, so authorities might restore it further and eventually use it again as a historic theater. Okay, Victoria, you need a little bit more explanation there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Salim. All right. So here's my answer. I don't think it is in good enough shape to be anything but a tourist hotspot. Also, I don't think that the structure could be really used as a stadium again without it falling apart. The stones are simply too old and brittle. Okay. Here's my answer. And again, nice clear answer. If you answer in the negative, you have to be fluent. It's usually better to answer in the positive. This time I decided to go against the grain. Okay. All right. So here we go. Do you think the Colosseum will ever be used for entertainment again, aside from tourism, I mean? I don't think it's in good enough shape to be anything but a tourist hotspot. Also, I don't think that the structure could be really used as a stadium again without it falling apart. The stones are simply too old and brittle. Brittle means easy to break. Okay, so an eggshell is brittle. When I give you new vocabulary like this, write it down. And for those of you members, hint, hint, that were in the last class, you should write that word down. And then when you have some time after the class, use those steps from my last lesson for vocabulary learning. So write the definition and then write a unique original sentence that includes you and is complex or compound with the word brittle. Okay, brittle. All right. Sukhdeep is asking a question. Sukhdeep says, sir, what if I could not understand the question? In that case, Sukhdeep, first ask for it to be repeated. So simply say, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you're asking. Can you ask me again? And then the examiner will repeat, yeah, do you think the Colosseum will ever be used for entertainment again, aside from tourism, I mean? And then if you still don't get it, Sukhdeep, then you have to say, I'm just not clear on what you're asking. Can you please move to the next question? Okay? All right, so that's how you do it. Do not try to answer questions that you do not understand. There is no point. You will lose and marks, and that's very valuable. Okay. All right, some more answers coming up. I reckon that it is quite unlikely to happen because it's much easier for authorities to construct other entertaining facilities rather than using the Colosseum. That's a good answer. Okay, that's a good alternative. All right. So at this point, the examiner will say, okay, let's discuss city development. So something that's kind of related. Landmarks are buildings or structures in the city, so they might introduce a topic like city development. Okay, before we start to get really heavy into part 3, I want to give you a couple of really important tips to get those higher band scores. Okay, all right, so here we go. So important tips for high bands in part 3. Tip number 1, make sure to use the question in your answers. Okay, reflect the grammar and give explanations and examples. Okay. Tip number 2, this is an important one. Keep this one in mind. Way too many students forget to do this. So the examiner is giving you a hint when they say, now I will ask you some questions connected to the topic of part 2. Okay? All right? So you need to say something like, yeah, okay, the Colosseum where I was is an example of this. So what you want to do is make sure to connect your part 3 responses to your part 2 discussion as much as possible. Okay, so using expressions like just like I mentioned about the Colosseum. Okay. As I had said in the previous part. Okay, so you can use these kinds of expressions. All right. We react to says, thanks a lot, sir. Just because of you, I have cleared my exam with 6.5 overall. Congratulations, React 2. That's fantastic. I'm happy to hear that. I'm always glad when students come back to these live classes and share their success experiences. And of course, you can always send me an email as well. We love to get your testimonials. If you have some time, go on our website and you can see like there's over 150 testimonials of students from around the world that have cleared the IELTS, which is great. Okay, so congrats, React 2. That's good. All right. So let's do this. So we want to practice these for the next questions. Answering, reflecting the grammar. So if the question is present perfect, use the present perfect. If it's past perfect, use the past perfect. And we want to give explanations and examples, okay? And we want to connect to part 3 as much as possible with part 2 because that will create a lot of coherence, originality, fluency, all of those goodies that will get you a high band score, okay? All right. So here we go. The examiner says, let's discuss city development. And then they will go one question at a time. This is a professional conversation. Treat it as such. Okay, give your best English. And here's the first question. What are some ways that cities in your country are changing in the past decade? Okay, give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. So what are some ways that cities in your country are changing in the past decade? Okay. Ferdov says structures these days tend to be designed mostly for commercial purposes, and thus there are a lot of high-rise buildings in my city being built these days. In this way, businesses can maximize revenue while also taking advantage of small inner city property space. Okay. For Dobbs, I made a couple of corrections there. I did say in my city, but you can say, yeah, cities in my country. Okay, so mention your country for Dobbs. Alex says cities in India are developing enormously with high-tech companies and high-rise buildings. Industrialization and globalization has changed the evolutionary movement and has made these cities global hotspots. Okay. All right, Alex, a little bit general. Try to be a bit more specific. Okay. So it's a good start. Be as specific as possible. All right. Sadesh says, I think the cities have developed to a vast extent as compared to a few decades ago. For example, there are plenty of Wi-Fi hotspots in public places these days, which citizens use to browse the internet publicly. Okay, Sadesh, multiple questions, some ways. So multiple ways. Okay. All right. Un says, in Vietnam, cities like Hanoi have not only been more multicultural, have not only become more multicultural, but also are more prosperous as the economy has flourished for the past decade from the tourism revenue and global trade. Very good. And that's a great answer. Now think about how you can tie in your part 2 response to the Colosseum. Okay. I'm sure there are some landmarks in Hanoi which draw tourism, like the Colosseum in Rome. Okay. All right. Let's take one more. Oas says, most of the cities have changed in my country, Syria, in the past 10 years, such as old landmarks have been replaced by new buildings, and a lot of new roads have been built which run across wooded land. And the Aleppo ancient market has been, okay, that's good. I don't see the finish, but it's a good start. All right. In this case, for this question, it's a tricky one to start off part 3. As you heard my responses, I'm using a lot of present perfect passive voice. Why am I doing that? So for those students who were in my grammar lesson the other week and we talked about present perfect, why am I using present perfect passive in this case to answer this question? What's the logic there? Can anybody tell me? Okay, so cities in Canada have flourished both technologically and economically over the past 10 years. There have been many improvements to historical landmarks which have drawn an increasing number of visitors to cities like Toronto and Vancouver, just like the Colosseum in Rome. Millions of travelers now go to Toronto to see the CN Tower. Okay, I'm just making it up. The important point here is I'm making connections. Okay, so the question is asking me plurals some ways, so I need at least two. Okay, technologically, infrastructure, economically. So cities in Canada, I'm being very specific. Your country, okay? Name the country. It doesn't matter that you're sitting in an exam in that country. Be specific, okay? So cities in cities in Canada have flourished both technologically and economically over the past 10 years. There have been many improvements to historical landmarks which have drawn an increasing number of visitors to cities like Toronto and Vancouver. Just like the Colosseum in Rome, millions of travelers now go to Toronto to see the CN Tower. Okay? All right. So I see some answers to my question about the present perfect passive. So let's see. Chabi says answers with no personal experience, so no personal answers. I'm not sure what that's relating to, Chabi. Amanda says emphasize the change in the cities. Yeah, very good, Amanda. Absolutely. So I'm using the present perfect in the answers. So present perfect, this is going back to my grammar lesson the other week. It's just a reminder. Is good in this answer to reflect both change and achievement over time. Since we do not express the agent of the action, the engineers or builders making these changes, we use the passive form of the present perfect. Okay, I hope that makes sense for everybody. So this is why present perfect is used here. This is just a little bit of review from last week. So present perfect is used to emphasize change and achievement. So the change over the past 10 years is that achievement as well. And we don't really say, okay, well, the engineers have improved the city's infrastructure. You could, but we don't. So I use the passive voice here. Okay. Everybody's clear on that, right? All right. So the next question is, and the examiner will follow up, and sometimes it might sound strange, but you have to answer clearly. Is this good or bad? So again, answering this question, basically have these changes in the cities in your countries being good or bad. Okay. All right. Amanjot says, this is better for not only accommodating large populations, but also it gives a beautiful look to the cities and improves the economy as well, which leads to a better quality of life for the citizens. Okay, Amanjad, good. Ferdov says, I'm in two minds about this question. For business, it is good, but for locals, the trend causes a major negative effect, squeezing living space and greenery, especially out of the downtown core. These changes have also influenced people's daily stress levels. Okay, good. For Dobbs, you're absolutely on the right track. I'm not sure how you're planning to finish that sentence, but it's looking good. Okay, let's take some more here. Nico says, the greatest change in my city nowadays compared to 10 years ago are ancient stadiums that are used for football were now reviewed, and it's used for entertainment as well as celebrating the Independent Restoration Day. Nico, careful with your grammar. Okay. Elida says, I think development is always good for the country and people. When cities are developing in the country, it will lead to better and better life. All of the developing countries attribute their success to these kinds of changes, as I mentioned, in technology and economy from increased tourism. Okay, Elida, I had to make a few corrections there for your response to be sensible, so pay attention to that. Okay. All right. Unkal, comrade, says, yes, these have been good changes because of these developments in cities in my country. There are many more job opportunities for people. I mean, job vacancies proportionally increasing in the population. There's a great demand for employment in the tourism industry. As well as, of course, more demand in the supporting businesses like souvenir shops around these tourist hotspots. Okay, Unkal, make that connection, right? So connect among your answers. Rajveer says, it is definitely a positive. Not only does it enhance the quality of life for the citizens, but also attracts tourists, which contributes to the economy of the nation. Good. NBX Gaming, hi, join right in. I see that you became a member just recently. That's fantastic. Make sure to send me an email and hop on in the chat. So give some answers, okay? All right, so is this good? I think this is mostly positive for Canada as the increase in tourism helps to create many jobs in this industry and thereby improves the living standards of the citizens. Furthermore, the improvements in technology have made commuting and communicating faster and better than ever before. All right. I might say something like one downside is that tourists at times create added pollution. However, this can be managed by authorities. Okay. All right. So here is my response. Repeat after me. Is this good or bad? I think this is mostly positive. So again, I'm paraphrasing, right? If I can avoid saying good, if I can use a different word, that will definitely help my lexical resource score to go up in the IELTS exam. So I think this is mostly positive for Canada, as the increase in tourism helps to create many jobs in this industry and thereby improves the living standards of its citizens. And this is where you might want to include an example. So there's always, think of the examples. I read that just last year, a new museum in Toronto hired 500 employees. Okay, so it's good to kind of squeak in these smooth flowing examples to really clarify your response and increase your band score. So try to squeeze these in whenever you can, okay? So I read that just last year, a new museum in Toronto hired 500 employees. Furthermore, the improvements in technology have made commuting and communicating faster and better than ever before. One downside is that tourists at times create added pollution. However, this can be managed by authorities. So if I'm not stopped, then I mention a quick negative here as well. Instead of saying negative or bad, I use the word downside. Downside is kind of like saying a negative or a bad, but not as strongly. Okay. A strong version would be like a horrible side effect. A horrible side effect of tourism is the massive amount of pollution that's created by tourists or by the industry. Okay. That would be the stronger way to express that. All right. Let's keep going. Next question. Okay. Is there anything you would change in the way cities function these days, and how would you do that? Give me a nice full sentence, okay? Give me a nice full sentence for this one. All right. So is there anything you would change in the way cities function these days, and how? Okay. Ois, good job catching that this is a conditional for sure. So Ois says, if I could change or adjust the cities nowadays, I would suggest to establish new buildings and roads in the countryside so that they will be far from city centers to reduce the pollution and protect the ancient land. Okay, Ois, the end of it clarified. I think you have a good start. I think you have a good idea. You need more clarification at the end of your response, okay? Ferdov says, of course, I can clean my vicinity and create more bike lanes to help people reduce traffic jams. Also, authorities could teach people to use eco-friendly vehicles and clean up in their region. Okay, so more cleanliness and more eco-friendly alternatives to transportation for Dobbs. It doesn't have to be you doing this. The question is not saying like what would you personally do, but what would you simply change about the city? Okay. Un says, I think that cities should be more aware of the environment while keeping economic growth. Like in Vietnam, tourists can donate a couple of dollars to preserve and plant trees around the Hanoi monuments. Okay, Un, good. So more conservation of historical landmarks and a greater awareness of the environment. Okay. Shrihari says there are many books online. You can find those. Instead of the books, you can follow him, or you can take membership instead of the book. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, Shrihari. Maybe clarify that. Okay. All right. Elida says, I would change the metro and transportation networks. I would make more places for tourism, in this way increasing the overall functionality and developing the city further to improve the economy. Okay, all right. That's a good idea. Let me try to rephrase that a little bit so it's a bit better English. So I would change the public transportation system, specifically the metro, which would make commuting highly efficient, and I would build more places for tourism. In this way, increasing the economic power of the cities in Turkey. I'm guessing you're in Turkey from your name, Yilmaz. Okay. All right. Yes, I would make a few adjustments to the daily operation of cities in Canada. Firstly, I would have the government fund more public transport systems, especially to rural areas. In this way, decreasing carbon emissions. Also, I would allocate funds to improving the fiber optic network across the country, as the internet infrastructure is still quite poor in Canada compared to the global standards. All right, it's actually true what I wrote here. So here's the question again. Repeat after me. Is there anything you would change in the way cities function these days? How? Yes, I would make a few adjustments to the daily operation of cities in Canada. Firstly, I would have the government fund more public transport systems, especially to rural areas, in this way decreasing carbon emissions. Also, I would allocate funds to improving the fiber optic network across the country, as the internet infrastructure is still quite poor in Canada compared to the global standards. And for those of you who might have visited Canada or come to Canada, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So in Canada, we overuse cars. Everybody's driving everywhere all the time because we have fairly poor public transportation in many parts of the country, especially from cities to rural areas. You have to wait for buses. They take a long time. So definitely some improvements could be made there. And our internet here is, well, it's progressing, but it's still quite bad compared to many other places. So, all right. Again, if you didn't catch this the first time, the video will be up after this class in about an hour, so you can go back and review. Okay? All right. Next question. Should there be more regulations placed on city planning? So this question is asking you, should there be more rules, more laws that control the way cities are planned? Jainiel says, and costly. Yeah, absolutely, Jainiel. I agree. You're talking about the internet here in Canada. It's way overpriced. It's bad and you're paying a lot. All right. Ferdov says governments should protect the design of cities by laws, as there are many unaesthetic structures, and most trees have been chopped down in order to build commercial buildings. These should be replaced. So protecting green spaces, very good, Ferdovs. Okay, great answer. So protecting green spaces and protecting the aesthetic appeal of the city. So how beautiful it is. Okay. All right. Ois says absolutely governments must impose laws so that people own just one vehicle per household and use public transit to reduce pollution and not allow buildings more than 10 stories in the cities. Yeah, protecting natural sunlight. That's definitely one, Ois. So reducing the height of city or the height of buildings. Yeah, absolutely. It's a clever answer. Okay, thinking outside the box, always a good idea. All right, Amanjad says, I think yes, because there are some areas in cities where schools and hospitals are close to major roads rather than further from the hustle and bustle of the city. Okay, so, all right, Amanjad, so you're talking about infrastructure design for it to be more convenient for citizens or to better serve citizens. So you want to clarify that. I get your idea. It's a good start. You need to clarify. Okay. All right, Vipul says, well, according to me, city planning should be done with great precision rather than focusing on simply infrastructure and factories that emit smoke and cause pollution. They should focus more on greenery and parks. Very good, Vipul. Okay. All right. Salim says, certainly encroachment on green lands should be restrained alongside with the protection of water bodies such as rivers and lakes that are close to or in the cities. The later industrial entities should be regulated by law. Okay, very good. Yes. So I definitely feel that more legislation should be established which regulates the aesthetic of new buildings to keep the cities looking beautiful. There is a large box-shaped mall which has been recently built in Vancouver, and it looks awful. Also, there must be laws that protect green spaces like parks so that people not only find cities functional but also pleasurable to reside in. All right. There we go. So, again, repeat after me. Should there be more regulations placed on city planning? I definitely feel that more legislation should be established which regulates the aesthetic of new buildings to keep the cities looking beautiful. There is a large box-shaped mall which has been recently built in Vancouver, and it looks awful. Also, there must be laws that protect green spaces like parks so that people not only find cities functional but also pleasurable to reside in. Okay, not only, but also that correlative conjunction again, okay? The meaning of legislation is basically a law that's created by government, which becomes a part of the regular functioning of society, okay? Yeah, Amanjad has put a definition there. Legislation is rules and laws established by government. Okay, so here you have a few more questions related to the topic of part 2. In your opinion, why do people like to travel to other countries? Do you think it's good or bad for countries to welcome tourists? Can you give examples? And how has tourism changed in your country over the years? Has this been a positive? I encourage you to practice these questions on our websites. So again, remember, when you log in to your website at ahelp.com, you have this student partner speaking. You can click on that student partner speaking, and there will usually be some students waiting to chat. So right now we have Alisher and Ung in here. You can video chat or audio chat with them. So make sure to practice these questions with your fellow students. For general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com. Again, same kind of chat interface. You can click that big red button to join the premium package there. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, so really worth spending a couple dollars and getting all of our goodies on those websites to improve your band scores, videos, practice exams, apps, much, much more. And that's it for me for today. I will be back, students, on Wednesday with speaking part 1. Thank you, Carolina, for responding to many people's questions. I saw that. That was a great job. Thank you, members, for supporting our channel, and thank you, students, for being here with me today. I wish all of you a great remainder of your weekend, wherever you are in the world. I wish you sweet dreams if it's getting late in your country. If it's the start to your day, then I wish you a successful day ahead. I'm Adrian, signing out from Victoria on the west coast of Canada for now. Much love to all of you. Bye.